Hello, morning everyone, and welcome. Welcome back for our second session of the day. This session will be about digital solutions for inclusive insurance. So yes, again, we just a few things on the house. We have translation available, so feel free to put on the interpretation icon on the bottom of the screen, and you'll be able to listen. So again, thank you very much for joining us. I'll pass to Kate from Senfree that will be moderating this session. Kate, over to you. Thank you.
Sure, thanks so much, Denise. And Denise, if you want to also launch the poll questions so we can just get a better idea of who's in the room and some of their thinking on this topic. But as Denise said, welcome and thank you for joining this session on digital solutions for inclusive insurance. We're very happy that you were able to join. I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of some very small housekeeping matters. Is that all participants have been muted, and if you want to, I believe that you actually can't unmute yourself, but if you can, I'm very happy at the end of the session to take question and answer verbally. However, I'm also very happy for you to ask questions throughout in the question and answer session. At the end of the session, I've put some time aside for us to address those specific questions. And you'll also see that there's an interactive chat available, which I believe some of you guys are already utilizing, which I'm very happy to see. Please feel free to use this platform for any discussions with the broader group or private communications with people throughout the session, hoping that you can make some connections throughout this. So before I launch into this specific topic, I just wanted to give you a brief overview of the great line of panelists that we have lined up. So my name is Kate Reinhardt-Smith. I'm a senior associate at a think tank called Senfree, the Center for Financial Regulation and Inclusion, which is a think tank that does research into financial sector development. And I'm very happy to say that I'm based in Cape Town, South Africa, but it's very, very hot today here. And the other panelists that we have for this session is Rishi Rayathatha. He is a senior advocacy manager for GSMA based in the UK. We also have Valerie Labi, who is a country manager for Bima Ghana. And then from your very own Mozambique, we have two phenomenal panelists. The first is Taunda Shari. He's the CEO of Tabek FinTech based in Mozambique. And then we also have Salomo David, who is the head of research and development for the National Communications Institute of Mozambique. So just a brief overview of how this session will run is that I'll give a very, very brief introduction now, and then it will be followed by 4 different presentations kept to 10 minutes each from the different panelists. So Rishi will take us through digital insurance distribution models in East and Southern Africa. Valerie will talk through the successes and failures of digital insurance in developing countries with a specific emphasis on Ghana. Taunda will take us through what it's like to actually run a digital insurance business in Mozambique. And then we'll end off with a presentation from Salomo on supporting infrastructure and regulation for digitization in Mozambique. And then at the end of the session, I'll save about 30 minutes for question and answer. Like I said, I would really appreciate it if you guys can ask any questions that you have in the chat, and I will take responsibility for asking them to the panelists in the question and answer. And then we'll have a short wrap up at the very end. So just a little bit more about this session is that over the last decade, we've seen the digitization of the insurance sector receiving considerable attention in both developed and developing countries. As many of you guys are aware, InsurTech has now become a buzzword that is known to all. And insurers are increasingly looking to see how they can incorporate technology and digitization into the insurance value chain. I think COVID-19 has actually accelerated and amplified this even more. And to put it in perspective in terms of just the number of insurtechs that we're seeing out there is that in 2019, Sinfree and FSD Africa did a mapping of insurtechs in developing countries and found that there were over 202 insurtech initiatives in Africa alone. I think that if we did this mapping, 5 to 10 years earlier, it would have looked like a very, very different picture. So this just illustrates the extent to which we're seeing the use of technology in the insurance sector on the continent. I think it's really important to note that also with the rise of mobile phones and internet penetration on the continent, we have seen increased interest from insurers on how they can leverage digital channels for not only the distribution of their products, but also thinking through how they can utilize these tech and infrastructure advances to better serve their clients in a number of ways. But I think it's also important to note that digital insurance models have seen varying degrees of success, both in developed worlds and on the continent. So the objective of this session is really to unpack what are some of these different digital insurance models with a focus on distribution that we've seen across the continent and highlight some of the key successes and failures. So throughout this session, we really are going to be exploring 3 different questions. The first is around what are some of the most viable working digital insurance models within the region and within Mozambique, which is why I'm very happy we have 2 individuals from Mozambique joining us as well to give that context. What have been the challenges experienced in managing these digital inclusive insurance businesses? And I think this is where Rishi and Valerie will be extremely useful in this session. And then how can regulators support the development of digital insurance solutions on infrastructure, pricing, and collaboration between regulators? So all of the presentations that we have throughout, as well as the question and answer that we'll have at the very end, are really focused on answering these 3 different questions. And with that, let me hand over to Rishi for the first presentation on digital insurance distribution models in East and Southern Africa.
Thanks, Kate. Bom dia, meu nome é Rishi Raithatha e trabalho para a GSMA em Londres. É prazer estar falando com você. And that's the extent of my Portuguese for today. So good morning, everybody. My name is Rishi Raithatha, and I work as a Senior Advocacy Manager for the GSMA based in London. Before I continue, I'd like to thank Lemmy Manje from FinProbity Solutions, as well as Denise Alves from FSDM and Dirk Reinhardt from the Munich Re Foundation for inviting me to speak here today. And I'm also very grateful to Kate Reinhardt-Schmidt, for our moderator today, for putting this panel together. So the GSMA represents the interests of mobile network operators worldwide, uniting at least 750 such operators and almost 400 other companies in the broader mobile ecosystem. Now, I work for the GSMA's mobile money team, whose mission it is to support our members and in other industry stakeholders to increase the use and sustainability of mobile money services and increase financial inclusion in the process. Kate, if I could bother you to go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So when thinking about promising digital distribution models for inclusive insurance services in sub-Saharan Africa, we have seen 3 main approaches that have emerged. The first, next please, Kate, and most well known is the use of mobile or mobile money services as a means to reach as many customers as possible. So numerous services have adopted this approach, having initially started out by offering insurance services that are based on topping up your airtime balance. So if you top up your balance, you get cover for 30 days for life or funeral or health insurance. There has been a gradual shift to freemium and premium models, where a basic level of cover that you get by topping up can be supplemented by paying more for comprehensive cover, or doing away completely with that and just offering a fully paid for service. And the other shift that we've seen is the use of mobile money to collect to collect premiums and pay out claims. And of course, for many insurance service providers using mobile, this has proven to be cheaper than relying on airtime, which is liable to taxation. Next, please, Kate. The second approach that we've seen for digital distribution models refers to digital platforms. And actually, the interesting thing about this is that Kate, our moderator here today, would be better placed to tell you about these in more detail than me. Although most platforms rely on mobile as their rails, the ability to offer unique services and seamlessly bundle insurance makes such platforms a very compelling distribution channel. So for individuals and companies that use such platforms, this basically offers insurance service providers an additional way to reach new customers, especially those who are previously uninsured, as is the case with mobile as well. Some well-known examples of this include Rent My Ride, which is a motor vehicle sharing platform in South Africa that has embedded insurance coverage and provides up to $365,000 worth of liability cover that's valid while the car is rented out. Another well-known example is Kobo 360, which is a logistics and career platform that connects drivers and owners of trucks with companies that want to transport their goods in Nigeria. And here we have an embedded insurance product that covers goods from the point of pickup to the point of drop-off. And these are just a number of digital platforms that have emerged in the last 3 or 4 years. Next, please, Kate. And the final approach that we see for digital distribution is via international remittance providers. And so this refers to a scenario where someone sending money to family or friends can add on insurance either for themselves or for their family or friends, or actually it is bundled together with the service. Prominent examples that pay out claims to beneficiaries in Sub-Saharan Africa include Mukuru's funeral cover, Transfer Protect in France, which is a joint venture between Western Union and AXA, Hello Protect in the UAE, which involves a consortium comprising Hello Pesa, Democrats, and AXA, and Remit Care in Ghana, which again is a joint venture between Allianz and PayAngel. And you know, looking at these examples, the mobile money team at the GSMA has actually looked at a particular case study as to how this works well. And the example that we looked at is not a Sub-Saharan African one; it is an Asian one. But I'm keen to mention it because of the way that it has worked as a pilot. So this pilot involved Value, which is a mobile money provider based in Malaysia, who piloted an app-based international remittance service that allowed migrant workers to send money back from Malaysia to Bangladesh and Pakistan. And this service was piloted between 2017 and 2020, together with the support of IFAD. What the pilot contained was that Value would offer health insurance to recipients of remittances in Pakistan. And this was done through WebDoc Health Insurance, which is a technical service provider, and underwritten by United Bank Limited. And this was all done together in partnership with EasyPesa, which is a mobile money provider in Pakistan. So for the pilot, remittance recipients were provided WebDoc's cover free of charge for 1 year. And the package included 5 monthly teledoctor consultations, inpatient cover of up to $30 a month, and reduced waiting times. And for anybody who wanted to continue the cover, preferential rates were offered for subsequent years. So what we found in our research for this was that while uptake was quite positive, there's a strong likelihood that COVID-19 pandemic may have reinforced the importance of health insurance services. And we expect that renewal numbers that will emerge at some point soon are likely to underscore how popular the product might have been and how sustainable how sustainable it could be and its longevity too. Next slide, please, Kate. So being the GSMA, our focus is naturally on how mobile or mobile money can be used to improve distribution. And what we've typically seen is 2 types of approaches that are being used. One that is led by mobile network operators or mobile money providers in some cases, and one that's led by technical service providers or insurers themselves. So both of these approaches have been used across 2 very distinct business models. One where you're selling directly to the consumer, so business to consumer, and one where you're actually selling to a business but it ultimately trickles down to a consumer, so business to consumer. And so for both models, we see a range of examples, and I'm sure that many of you on this call will probably question why a number of examples you might know of have been left out, but this is illustrative and not exhaustive by any means. So in terms of models led by mobile network operators, we see a couple of innovative solutions. So IO that is led by MTN together with MMI Holdings offers health and life insurance to customers who top up their airtime balances across Ghana, Uganda, and Zambia, particularly successful in Zambia in particular. And EcoSure, of course, is another well-known example which offers a range of different insurance services, inclusive insurance services that cover funerals, hospital admittances, personal accidents, and more. And these are all, again, sold directly to consumers. Importantly, EcoNet, which is the parent company, the mobile network operator that EcoSure uses, its agri-arm, which is called EcoFarmer, offers a combination product that includes weather index insurance, funeral cover, membership of the Zimbabwe Farmers Union, and cattle or maize farming tips as well. And again, this sort of unique product is sold directly to consumers as well. In terms of services led by technical service providers or insurers, of course, we see BIMA, which is very well known, which provides health and life insurance directly to consumers. And it would be very unfair for me to tell you anything more because we've got a colleague from BIMA on the call who'll be able to will be best placed to explain their service further. And MLife is an insurer-led service in Zambia offered by Madison Insurance that offers funeral insurance directly to customers. And in a number of cases, MLife has also targeted specific groups. So, for example, transport workers groups in Lusaka or teachers' unions as a way to try and sort of straddle both selling directly to the consumer and going to groups where there are consumers that can be accessed. Although the service allows multiple payment methods, what we found was that mobile money has emerged as the most popular. And quite importantly, MLife is service agnostic. So it doesn't matter which mobile money provider you use. You can use whoever you're with to pay your premiums and receive your claim payouts. And a couple of others that I should mention that are not included here are OCO and Acre Africa. These are actually led by technical service providers, and they sell insurance directly to consumers. But the interesting thing about them is, much like MLife, they rely entirely on mobile money to receive, to collect premiums and to pay out claims. And of course, finally, all of you will be quite familiar with Pula by now. Pula offers agricultural insurance, and it differs from other providers such as OCO and Acre Africa, in that it works with cooperatives, farmers groups, government schemes, and businesses that have a large group of farmers on their books. So that allows them to sell directly to businesses that have a large pool of consumers available. Each of these examples effectively show how mobile and mobile money is used in a variety of ways to reach customers, collect premiums, and pay out claims. And more importantly, what we find is that the use of mobile continues to encourage digital and financial inclusion. The question that Kate and I were discussing in advance of this call was, what does this mean for Mozambique? And we've seen that in Mozambique, Hollard Insurance, for example, has been championing the use of inclusive insurance, particularly for farmers, and a number of pilots have taken place over the last few years. But in terms of partnerships with mobile money providers, that's something that has yet to sort of occur, at least where Hollard's efforts are concerned. What we find that is encouraging is that you have a number of mobile money providers and mobile network operators taking note of the fact that insurance is in demand. So with MTN, of course, backing its IO service, that is encouraging. Orange has launched Orange Bank, primarily in West Africa, that currently is looking at offering credit and savings, but that is keen to try and add insurance on later. And just yesterday, or 2 days ago, in fact, we came across an article where the CEO of M-Pesa was looking at using mobile money as a way of offering savings, wealth management, and insurance to consumers. as part of the drive to increase financial inclusion. So there are encouraging signs that there will be perhaps more appetite amongst mobile money providers to try and offer insurance where possible. Next slide, please, Kate. So that's it for me from now. The GSMA has carried out a bit of research on inclusive insurance. We've looked at the agricultural angle specifically, and we've also looked at just general insurance services that are offered across low and middle income countries, primarily in sub-Saharan Africa. We've got a couple of reports that we've written, and I'm happy to refer you to our website if you'd like to find out a bit more. But thank you for that.
Thanks so much, Rishi. Really appreciate that, and some very interesting digital distribution channels coming out of that presentation, namely MNOs, digital marketplaces, and remittance service providers. I would like to move on to the next presentation, which is being done by Valerie. So we're very lucky to have one of the examples actually that Rishi just spoke to join us now. So over to you, Valerie.
Thank you very much, Kate, and hello everyone. This is a real honor to have this opportunity to talk to you a bit about Bima and kind of successes and failures of digital insurance in emerging countries. My focus really is going to be on my experience as Ghana country manager. I'll start by just giving a brief overview of Bima and our business model. We'll share some examples of how we're using digital solutions in both our acquisitions, payments, claims, and engagement. And then we'll go on to close by just sharing some considerations and potential opportunities that could be thought about for anyone who's looking at embedding more digital solutions in their business model. So just a bit about Bima. We've been operating for 10 years now. Ghana was the first market. We are in 9 countries across Africa and Asia. In Ghana, we have a customer base of around 2.5 million consumers, and we are also pioneering telemedicine services for our customer base as well. So if we can go to the next slide. One of the questions that people always ask me has been around, why our business model, why did we decide to use mobile as our means of distribution? And this really speaks to the gap that we saw, that like many African countries, mobile penetration was greater than 90%, if not greater than 100% in terms of people having more than one mobile phone. But insurance penetration didn't have that same story. Less than 10% of our population had insurance. So Bima's real focus was, how could we leverage mobile technology to reach a broader consumer base? So if you can go to the next slide. And so what we wanted to do is provide new services to kind of disrupt the insurance industry specifically, leverage the power of mobile and make it affordable for mass market, make our products affordable for mass markets, being very client-centric. So our products really focus on how you can protect your whole family with insurance, being simple at every stage. And that's the real design principles for the customer demographic we reach. Simplicity is a real driver of retention, and then high quality, understanding what customers value. So the products that we offer are life insurance. We offer support and disability insurance, and then a product we call HospiCash, which means that if somebody's admitted to the hospital, we can send money direct to their mobile money platform to support as a contribution towards their overall hospital bills. And then we have a proposition called mHealth, and this is our telemedicine services. We're also piloting drug delivery, and then with people who subscribe to it get discounts at partner labs. If you can go to the next slide. Brilliant. So how are we using digital channels? If you can go to the next slide. There are 2 main ways that we've been using digital channels. So the first one is really looking at how we could drive acquisition, make acquisition easy using the mobile phone. So you can see we actually have a paperless registration process, and we have a series of field agents who actually go door to door in the community, can talk to people about our products and services, and actually sign them up or register them using our a platform, a sales agent platform, so that customers can actually be subscribed. Once the registration has happened, a customer would get a prompt on their own mobile phone. And this is what we use as almost the telephone number becomes a digital signature. And a customer is asked for a prompt and to access their mobile money platforms. We then have 2 distribution channels to support us on how we collect payments. We have an M&O channel, which means that we can actually deduct straight from your airtime. So once you've subscribed, that's your medium of payment is through airtime, and that's in partnership with our current M&O partner, Airtel TV. And then we have a second distribution channel which focuses on mobile money. So we have integrations with the mobile money platforms across Ghana, which also allows us to deduct what we call recurring payments direct from a customer's mobile phone on a monthly basis. And then the area, another area we use digital solutions has been the claims process. So we really want customers to get value from their insurance. And one of the ways that we've realized we can do that is by simplifying our claims process, allowing people to actually send their claims documents to us via WhatsApp and then receive their claims payment on their mobile money wallet. If you can go to the next slide. The second kind of, so that was really the acquisitions, payments, and claims process, the opportunity for us to embed digital solutions. And then the second area we've been really looking at is how can we drive ongoing and consistent customer engagement and education through sharing digital content and allowing our customers to use digital means to reach and engage with us. So customers at the time when they're also registering for insurance, they can register via their phone for a health program. And we have 4 different types of health programs. As part of an onboarding journey to ensure that our customers really understand the elements of the insurance that they've purchased, we have these IVR and videos that we can share with customers. So IVR for customers who don't have a smartphone, and then WhatsApp videos for customers who do have a smartphone, just to drive kind of understanding of product. Customers can receive health tips, the health tips they've registered for via SMS or via IVR, either weekly or monthly. And typically this is received on the customer's phone, and they also can call us back if they want further discussion or explanation about these health tips. And then for new customers, within their first 3 months, they would also receive a call from our nursing team. And this is an engagement call to also introduce customers to mHealth as a service, in addition to the insurance proposition that they've subscribed to. If a customer feels sick, they can call a BEMA doctor. The BEMA doctor can also refer that customer to a lab, and we would receive the lab results digitally back to our doctors for them to actually potentially make a prescription and we also are piloting drug delivery direct to consumer households. And then finally, if a customer is hospitalized, they can send their documents via WhatsApp and then receive their HospiCash at that stage to support them. So you can see that we're trying to use digital channels at each stage of an engagement point to drive real retention and continuous payment for their policy. If you can go into the next slide. So what are the kind of considerations or challenges and opportunities? I've put them into kind of 4 buckets. When designing kind of digital solutions or distribution, the first thing is really likability. Would the customers actually like that channel or distribution opportunity? And particularly in my experience with introducing the mobile money distribution channel in Ghana, trust has been a very, very big element that we've had to address to make sure that people feel comfortable signing up for insurance using mobile money. I think the trust within the ecosystem around like increasing fraudsters around mobile money has been a Ghana specific issue that we've had to really have strong brand presence for people to trust in signing up to us digitally. Usefulness, so even making sure that the content that is being shared is useful and that the frequency is driving engagement, not actually pushing customers away because they see it as a bother. The second area is usability. So this is around, understanding our customer base and segmenting our customer base between those who have smartphones and not smartphones, so that knowing what content we can send to who and how. Language, so making sure that if we're sending digital content, that the language is appropriate. And then I would say the biggest pain point is around stability. So for any digital solutions, typically you would need third-party integrations and to think about building some systems redundancy. And so the stability of the infrastructure around even mobile money payments and recurring payments is an important consideration, which sometimes can be a pain point. And the scalability over time, how would the processes, can the digital processes that have been designed actually scale? What is the cost to scale them? And then my last slide, I just wanted to talk about one of the opportunities that we've really seen as people, if you go to the next slide, as people are, more of our customer base is migrating onto using smartphones, we're being able to develop more interesting content to really drive engagement and understanding of insurance and financial inclusion. So I had a little video here. It's in Tree, which is the local language in Ghana, but you can play it just so that you can get an understanding of some of the illustrations and how we're also sharing with our customer base. Let's say it plays. So this is a video that we are sharing to customers as part of an onboarding journey to introduce them to our doctor service. So we're saying that we have qualified doctors and we are encouraging customers that if they get sick, they can call us at any time. Our doctors are available 24 hours and they're available over the phone, so you can reach out to them at any point in time and they can prescribe to you medicines. So this is really just an example, you can pause the video now, of the kind of content and creativity that we can now deliver to our customer base to really drive that engagement and understanding of insurance. So on that note, thank you for listening. I think my presentation is ended.
Great, thanks so much, Valerie. Really great to learn more about what BIMA has done in Ghana and for highlighting some of the key factors that one needs to get right when offering digital insurance through M&Os. I think great learnings and things for us to reflect on the question and answer, so thanks so much. With that said, I'm actually going to head on to Taunda, who is going to talk us through inclusive digital insurance for low-income families. And he'll have a specific focus on Mozambique, which is fantastic. So over to you, Taunda. Okay, it seems like Taunda may have dropped off for now. Let me just check the chat and see if there's anything there. Otherwise, I think we can move on to the next presentation while we wait for him to rejoin. What is a conference without some technical and connection things happening? So Denise, did you want to say something quickly before I move on?
Yes, I said I think Taunda is back on.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, fantastic.
Hello. I was on. I was just waiting for the permissions.
Okay, sorry about that. Thanks so much for joining us. Over to you to talk us through inclusive digital insurance for low-income families in Mozambique. So without further ado, over to you.
Thank you and good morning. Thank you for inviting me and thank you for hearing our story here in Mozambique. My name is Tawanda Shari. I'm the CEO of Tabek, but I'm also the founder of Mozambique Teleinsurance. Mozambique is our division for the distribution of mobile insurance in Mozambique. We are also a technology provider who works with various partners to give insurance in Mozambique. We'd like to say that since we started last year when coronavirus was just starting, we've at least managed to engage at least 11,000 families, and we are registering each and every day on our mobile platform. I can go to the next slide so that I can join these two things together. It has animation. So one of the things that we realized and why we started with the mobile care and food and funeral insurance is because we realized, where does our life end? I think you can go with everything so that we can fill up the whole slide. Yeah. So one of the things that is happening here is people are scared or afraid of what will happen when I'm no longer here, or what will happen at the end of my life. So the end of life solutions are one of the things that are more important in people's life, apart from health, apart from other necessities. But when it comes to insurance, they're also wondering what will happen when I die. And this was one of the major things that made us go with funeral insurance in the life segment of insurance. So one of the things that is happening right now is there's so many people that get sick for over a long period of time, and they use up all the money in covering those expenses. We have people that are also in high debts, or they're going to debts because of having lost a family member, or having passed through a long period of illness and other things that happen in life. And this leads people to poverty, hunger, and in some instances when people sell their houses just to cater for other life things. So what happens is when life happens and somebody loses their life, the problem is, how do we give a decent burial, and also what happens to the surviving family? So this is where we come in as Mozambique or as Tabek to bring the technology to insurers to deliver such a platform. Can you go to the next slide? So in Mozambique, we do this by stories in communities. We don't usually generalize one story, but each community that we are joining or we are going to, we always want to hear the story of the family members that are there, so that we can deliver the right product or the right solution in the right hands. Our families in Mozambique, around 18 million of them, are not yet insured over the total accounts of insurance, and are not looking at which kind of insurance that people have. But over 18 million people do not have access to insurance, and they face the risk like any other nation: health, food, funeral, and also risks while they're traveling to other places to get their business materials. They always face those risks. So these are the stories that we actually get to make sure that we develop a digital platform or digital solution that responds to insurance, but also responding to these needs of the families. You can click on the slide. So what we realized that in Mozambique, the issue was the same. Sickness and hospitalization was one of the major things that ends up people having no money. Medication is a major cost in Mozambique. Travel is one of the reasons why people are facing the risk that they have, and accidents that happen during travel and normal accidents that happen also are those things that need risk covers. So why we ended up doing funeral insurance. You can go to the next slide. Right. This information has already been presented throughout this week. 86% of women in Mozambique are not insured, and that's by FinScope 2019, the recent study that was done. And the population is over 62% that have mobile phones or are using mobile phones, and there are over 6 million mobile money subscribers that are active. So this is one of the platforms that actually creates a possibility to generate mobile insurance and to start distribute mobile insurance in Mozambique. As we are the first to do that, so we wanted to see what the market is and what are the characteristics to foster this digitalization of insurance. But on the insurance side, the insurers right now, they are working with companies to deliver insurance. They work with brokers. They also have their digitized insurance systems that work for high-end and middle-income earners. And the banks and companies are for people that are employed. Banks are for people that can actually have a bank account. So this is the normal approach, or the traditional approach to insurance, and that is currently operating in Mozambique, that has managed to create over 8 to 9 million customers that are currently insured in Mozambique. But the current retail market, individual market, that really needs mobile insurance, micro insurance, the market that is unbanked, people that are irregular internet users, women that are living in poorer zones or farms, or they're self-employed, people that are living in rural areas, and people that use mobile money. So this characteristic or this jungle of the users that are already there are the ones that we are creating these solutions so that we can deliver insurance to them, and by making this characteristic work for them and deliver it to their doorstep. We can go to the next stage. So it was simple for us. After doing a study and realizing what would be the best way to deliver this insurance, that's where we end up having a partnership with Vodacom, a non-exclusive one. I'll explain why non-exclusive, where we can deliver insurance to the population in a matter of 2 minutes using any kind of device, without needing internet, without needing a bank account, and also without having to move from where they are living to go to the town to find a broker or to find a bank institute to be insured. The first thing that a person does is just to dial a short code, which is 737. They confirm the terms and conditions, and they can read about everything that they are getting in the information's button on the third option, or they can register, and in 2 minutes they'll have their insurance. They choose the packages along those packages that we have, one of the most affordable packages for funeral insurance in the market. But in our products, what we realize that if we want to sell funeral and then want to sell life insurance, this will be looked at it as a different cost to people. So what we did is we end up putting products that support funeral insurance as a whole, and products that are attached or mixed between funeral insurance and life insurance, so that a person will spend money buying two products, but at one go. This is a way to solve two different approaches to what people need. So the Plus product that is there and the Pro product were designed in such a way that a person will have their own benefits, but also have a sort of a life insurance side or a memorial benefit that comes to help and foster life for the surviving members of the policyholder. And our policy also was done to cover the whole family. Instead of doing an individual based pricing or premium, we decided that, no, what are the minimum number of people that are in a family in Mozambique, and realize at least 5 to 7 members are in a family. And so why should we not cover them on one go, one premium, and then give them different covers according to their age. So this is how we structured this product. I can go to the next slide. So for us to make this possible, there's a jungle of service providers that are there that we actually deal with as Movoke for the insurers. We need regulators, so we deal with the telecommunication regulators, the insurance regulator, and also we deal with the partnership integrations. Right now, we have integrated with the Vodacom. We are working to integrate with Movitel. And also we are waiting for TMCell to open up their integration platform so that we can integrate. And then M-Pesa is already integrated, and we are at an autonomous kind of integration where everything that happens on our system goes directly to M-Pesa in a matter of seconds. We are also integrating or instituting or affiliating funeral agencies. And in the next 3 months, we're starting to roll also pharmacies. These are distribution partners that are key to what we want to provide. These are distribution partners that are also key to the end result of the product that we're giving. Because if we give a premium, a insurance cover, but then if we do not have the service provider also participating in this, then there's somewhere where we are leaving out the client. So we are doing all this so that every service provider that is needed to carry out the product that we are doing, they also are sustained. Then we are also in talks already about to implement with ShopRite on our food insurance. Food insurance is basically the first product in Mozambique, I think maybe the second in Southern Africa, that offers the family food when a surviving or what can I call him? The breadwinner of the family has passed on. So they live in a period of 1 year to 2 years, the family with food. We can go to the next slide. I'm just rushing through. So for this to be possible, we just want, for this to be possible in any market, you need a regulator that fosters literacy in insurance in different departments, not only in the insurance institution, but every department, every government authorities need to know about insurance and about microinsurance, and also underwriters that are also willing to go the long run, because some of these products do not bring returns easily. It takes time. but they need to go for the long run. But one of the other things that really is needed to be put in the national financial inclusion agenda is the communication part. Communication of insurance is not being done because communication in itself is very expensive, but communication is one of the things that makes adoption very easy. So if the national financial inclusion agenda is only focusing on financial inclusion, looking at financial institutions and forgetting that this information needs to be communicated to the public or to the general population, then the financial national inclusion agenda is missing one aspect that is more important. Media houses, they also need to be included so that they know that the prices of such microinsurance product need to be communicated at a specific price. And then lastly, funding and launch pads are also needed for that. That's all I have. My time is limited, but thank you.
Thank you so much, Taunda. That was really great to learn more about digital distribution in Mozambique specifically, and the key issues that you mentioned at the end in terms of what is needed in order to unlock digital distribution in Mozambique more broadly, I think can be appreciated by many, and we'll unpack this further in the question and answer. I would like to move on to our last and final presentation for this meeting, which is by Salomo David. He works for the communications regulator in Mozambique, and he will discuss supporting infrastructure and regulation for the digitization of digitization in Mozambique. So without further ado, over to you, Salomo.
Hello. Good morning. My name is Solomon David. I work for the Communications Regulatory Authority of Mozambique, the Instituto Nacional de Comunicações. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and to explain what the regulator has been doing for the past 3 to 4 years to ensure that there is digital inclusion, not only digital inclusion, but also we are trying to mitigate the digital divide. You can go to the first slide, please. So basically what we did during the past 4 years was organizing our house, organizing the regulator. We start by creating a unified license in which one operator only needs to request the regulator one single license, and he can operate in the entire market. This will allow him to have an inclusive socioeconomic development within the market. We also decided it's very important to set pace when it comes to infrastructure. Make sure that all MNOs and operators, they share the same infrastructure. Now they are obliged to, it's not a wish. If there is infrastructure, you all need to share such that we can try to lower the price of telecommunication by reducing the investment that is required to do when it comes to infrastructure. Like the one that was saying, everybody wants to see lower prices, so we need to create regulatory actions to make sure that price reduction come to place. We also set a pace of the regulation, where in some sectors we try to create more competition within the industry by removing some of the regulations that we had in place. We are trying to organize all our norms and regulations and trying to reduce the amount of overwork that one entity has to be able to acquire or use any service in the telecommunication sector. We are also looking at innovation by creating a host or a space where we can allow small and medium enterprises to start creating disruptive technology or disruptive innovation, aiming to create new operators in the market. They just bring new technologies. On top of that, you know that the telecommunications sector mainly runs in airwaves, so meaning spectrum. We are trying to, in the past 1 year, giving more spectrum to the market. When I say more spectrum, I mean more and more spectrum, trying to release spectrum and allowing other companies to come into play in our market. Next slide, please. So we are also looking at big data for mobility, health, and environment. Mainly what we are trying to do at this span is to make sure that the data that we acquire from MNOs and what people do with their devices, we can anonymize to support other sectors, not only mobility, migration, weather, roads, infrastructure, but also sectors like the insurance. You need to understand what are the classes of people with different ages who might need a certain type of insurance. We did several trials in terms of mobility, try to improve the transportation and understand the mobility ecosystem, trying to understand every morning where people go, where they stay most of the time, what the time that they need to be mobile. We tried also to merge that information with the migration data and try to understand where people are going, where people are shifting, and trying to understand from the socioeconomic point of view why they are moving from one point of the country to another one. We are also tapping into weather. Mozambique in the past 2 years has been a place where we have very large storms, and we're trying to look at the data to try to be able to notify people during the event of a storm or after, and trying to be able to count how many people have been affected and produce this information to give to other institutions or relief agencies so that they can further do better their work. We also have looked at roads and infrastructure with big data, look at mobility patterns in rural areas and trying to advise the state where a road is required based on where and to which places people move. So we are looking at all of these, but we can look at different types of industries and trying to allow them to have access to this data that we are having in our CDRs, and allow other markets to be able to understand which places they have to move to set up a service in different areas. Next slide, please. When we are talking about communications data, like I was saying, that we can support different sectors, there are 4 things that we are looking properly. We have understood that our identification system within the telecommunication infrastructure or telecommunication sector or communication sector is not the best. We are changing to create a way to single identify one person that has a mobile phone, that has a digital television or set-top box or any other thing, and trying to allocate to that person one single identification within the entire spectrum of the communication sector, including the postal sector. We are also looking at ways to provide to companies like insurance companies, banks, the entire sector, ways to do KYC within the telecommunication sector, and creating a ways to do K1A. There is a problem within this, is that we do not have in place a regulation in Mozambique for data privacy, and we are creating one for specific for the telecommunication sector for the data that we will be able to share, where before the regulator provide any data to any operator within the telecommunication sector or outside the telecommunication sector, there is the need of a consent from the person that holds that phone number. Kate, can you press 1, please? We're also looking at security and privacy, like I said before, and we are trying to bring more and more of the postal and other services, like insurance is one type of service, all digital services that are available. We are trying to bring in, and wherever somebody requests one service from that area, we will provide to that entity the single identification, the communication sector, where you can have access to a vast array of information depending on what the subscriber have consent for him to have access. Next slide. I mean, this is nice to say, this is what we are doing, but where we are standing now. We aim to support access to digital services in Mozambique, create a single point of access to telecommunication and communication data, not only to business, but also to all regulators in the telecommunication sector. As of now, we look at it, we are 16%. We aim to finish in 2022, around June, to have a full platform where anybody can tap in and have access to data as long as they have got consent. We're on a trial stage with some banks within Mozambique, some small companies like startups. We are drafting a technical norm that can allow not only the big operators, but also small operators, PMEs and small companies to have access to the same service and allow them to grow at the same scale. We have got weekly sessions that we are working on this, and soon we will be presenting some of our results. The aim of all of this is to go digital. We have at these stages, we are still on the designing stage, buying hardwares and all the technical infrastructure required. We have a full task force working on this matter, which is a very specialized technicians, not only from the regulator, but different other sectors and including finance. We are really looking into having something we are calling a extra guard secure, where we try to make sure that we are not we do not have loopholes that hackers or other people can explore and have access to data from the subscribers, which has been a challenge today. And we are working on the clock to make sure that we have this service up and running. We are upgrading our capacity, not only in technical aspects, but human resources to be able to counter most of the challenges that are coming ahead with the digitalizations. As you can see, we are regulated. We have to regulate the entire telecommunications and communication sector, but all the service in the near future that we are seeing, they will always be relying on the communication sector to provide them not only with information, but also with security and other issues. Next slide, which is the last. I didn't want to take most of your time. My name is Solomon David. Like I said before, thank you for your time. I work for the Communication Regulatory Authority. We are open to receive anybody who would like to pose us questions or to support us in all the endeavors that I have presented here. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you so much for that presentation, Salomo. I think it was really great to get the perspective of the communications regulator for this conversation. So now I'm going to stop sharing the presentation. And I am going to ask Denise, if you can, do you mind closing the poll and sharing the results? I would be interested to see what the audience thought in terms of some of these questions, and then we can unpack these a bit further in the question and answer.
Okay, do you want me to end, right?
Yes, yes.
All right, so share results, correct?
Yes.
Share the results here on the screen.
Yes.
Can you
Okay,
see it?
great. Yes, I can. So I thought it would just be interesting to get the perspective of the individuals in the room. First of all, thank you so much to all the panelists for joining. The first question was really around what type of organization are you? And it's great to see that we have actually a great variety of organizations in the room, with underwriters being the most represented, followed by technical service providers, digital aggregators, so the distribution partners, as well as regulators and development partners. So really a great mix of different types of institutions here. In terms of what you guys thought were the most promising distribution channels for digital distribution, so this wasn't multiple choice questions, so you didn't have to pick only one. But unsurprisingly, we see mobile network operators as the top picked, top ranked digital distribution channel. And I think that probably very much ties back to the fact that a lot of innovation in digital distribution started with mobile network operators, actually with BIMA and Microinsure in Ghana. So I think it's probably the most well-known digital distribution channel at the moment. But it is good to see that people are increasingly seeing digital marketplaces and remittance service providers, which Rishi spoke us through in a bit more detail earlier, coming up as a promising distribution channel here. And then the last poll question that we asked was really around what are the main barriers to digital distribution in sub-Saharan Africa? It seems like there was actually quite an even split among these. It was also another multiple choice answer, but regulatory barriers came in, and it's great that we have the communications regulator to speak to some of these. Obviously, the regulatory barriers related to communications might be very different than the regulatory barriers which you might find coming from insurance legislation specifically. But we also saw some other barriers coming up around digital infrastructure and sub-Saharan Africa lacking limited digital agility of underwriters. Unfortunately, we don't have any underwriters on the panel to defend themselves right now about that, but I think that this is something that we've seen come up in quite a number of discussions we've had with underwriters on the continent, and oftentimes they're the first to note that themselves. And then key other challenges are inoperable and outdated legacy systems, consumer behavior, so consumers not being willing to purchase insurance digitally, and then distribution partnership challenges. I think Taunda did a very good job of speaking through just how many different distribution partners he needed to have and the various roles that each of them played in his products. So thank you so much to everyone who answered the poll. I think it's always good to get input from the audience. So now if I can invite all of the panelists to please put their videos on. We have some fantastic questions which were posted in the chat throughout. And thank you to Almiria and Denise from FSDM for translating the Portuguese ones for myself. Unfortunately, my Portuguese is even worse than Rishi's, who at least could do an opening line in it. So thank you so much to the facilitators for making this easier. So the first question that I have is from Denise, and she says that she believes that all of Africa, particularly in Mozambique, doesn't really have a culture of insurance. Particularly in Mozambique, she finds that insurance is mostly for high net worth individuals and oftentimes compulsory insurance products. And that she wanted to know, how are you guys thinking about designing distribution insurance solutions for low income individuals? And I think one thing to note here is, Denise, Mozambique is no different than many of the countries in sub-Saharan Africa. Oftentimes you do find that it's dominated by compulsory kind of third-party motor insurance or other types of compulsory products. But I do think there's some great learnings that we can get from the team in terms of, or from the panelists in terms of how they go about thinking about designing for more low-income individuals. So maybe if I can ask Taunda to give a quick answer to this, and then we can get the perspective of another panelist before we move on to the next question.
Okay, I think that's like my day. That's what we do every day. So low-income people, we categorize them into two different segments. There is what we call, yes, low income, and then there's what we call irregular income, low irregular income. So you first need to establish, okay, is it low income because I'm earning lower than the basic salary, or I actually have income, but it's fluctuating along the way. So when you're designing for those two groups from our end, that's how we look at it. We have to look at what is the pressing issue for that market or for those people. And when you're designing, it's not sitting in the boardroom, you have to go there. So it's not like it's not being done, but work is being done each and every day. But then there are stages. You have to start with something that is easily adoptable, easily understandable, and also that is affordable, but then responding to what they need. So on insurance for high end, you can actually sit in the boardroom and say, okay, now we can do motor insurance for this and that, and you can price it at this because everybody will buy. But for low income, you need to be with them and you need to walk through with them. It's a life cycle, and they learn, they trust you, and they start seeing that, okay, upon the way that I was resolving this issue, now I think I can go with insurance. So it's being done, but we have to work with them, and we are working with them in those two categories.
Great. So thank you so much for providing that feedback. I'd also like to invite Valerie to comment on this, because I know this is kind of your bread and butter as well. And maybe when you comment on this, you can also respond to another question that we got in the chat around how many customers BIMA has. I imagine you can speak to that in Ghana. Tied to that was a question on, what if you do know what the penetration rate of BIMA products is to GDP, but my guess is that you probably don't possess that data, and because it's low income, low value products, it's very low. So that's actually not the really important question. I think the important question is the first one, really around take up and the number of people that you're able to reach with your products. So Valerie, over to you.
Yeah, I think just talking about our culture, I would say across Africa, to not be around insurance. I think if you actually look from a cultural perspective, people do have insurance, but typically that insurance has been limited to your family network. When there is an event or an incident, people, even especially in Ghana, rely on their extended family to make a contribution. So I think it's also important for us as insurance providers to leverage that understanding. And sometimes I like to explain or position BIMA as that extra, more reliable family member who can make the contribution that is needed at the time of need. So I think from a cultural perspective, it is still there. It's just how do we leverage on that understanding to formalize it and to allow people to know that. I think it really starts with just an awareness, allow people to know that these kind of services exist. To really drive the understanding, and something that I would say has happened to support BIMA's growth has been referrals. So the more that people meet people who already have that kind of insurance and can really explain it and explain when they've received value from it, the more that we're seeing in those communities, we have a significantly higher uptake. And I think one of the things that we're also doing from a BIMA perspective is trying to understand how we can really embed ourselves in those community networks so that people can use their own experiences to introduce the product to others, because that is a trusted channel. I think in terms of BIMA's customer base in Ghana, we have around 2.5 million subscribers, and our subscribers are people who pay us through the MNO channel a daily increment of their airtime, or through the mobile money channel who pay recurringly monthly. I think it is also interesting in terms of just the question around where we sit in the broader or bigger picture of insurance penetration. I think our regulator in Ghana is doing quite a lot now to start to quantify that, understand, even from a perspective of not just the value of insurance we're selling, but also start to understand how many people are we even engaging within the insurance space to sell insurance, to reach customers, and starting to look at what is the broader ecosystem that our business is also impacting.
Great, that's definitely a very large number, 2.5 million customers. So thanks so much for sharing that in your perspective, Valerie. My next question is for you, Rishi, and this is really around probably linking back closely to the two different types of mobile distribution models that you mentioned, the MNO-led or the TSP and insurer-led. But from your work at GSMA in this space, what have you found to be the perspective of the mobile network operators when it comes to offering insurance? Is insurance something that they have a vested interest in? Because sometimes they definitely do get a rap sometimes of this is just a value-added service to them, not their bread and butter. So they don't invest as much time and effort into it as the technical service providers and underwriters would like them to. But it would be good to hear from your work in this space. What have you found to be the perspective of these MNOs?
I think you've touched on really the right note. At least that was the case quite a few years ago, when insurance was treated like a value-added service that would be launched with quite a buzz. As I mentioned, the product that was quite popular amongst most mobile networks at the time was where you top up your airtime and you get cover for 30 days, and that's something that even BIMA offered once upon a time. Since then, there's been a bit of a divergence. You've seen a lot of services of that ilk fall along the wayside, simply because they haven't been able to sort of sustain any additional growth. But you've had some who've been able to build on that and try and introduce additional levels of cover or moving on to becoming a slightly more sophisticated product. I think there has been a bit of a, how can I put this in a way that makes sense? There's been a bit of a concern around how to work well with mobile money providers and mobile network operators. And I think quite often the kind of value proposition or unit economics around this has not been particularly apparent. And so we find that is changing without doubt. You have a value chain where the mobile operator or the mobile money provider would be used simply as a payments rail. But I think more than that, you're seeing them take more of a vested interest in how to actually provide this product from an end-to-end perspective. Of course, mobile money providers can't get involved in certain elements of the value chain, such as working with, providing the underwriting or working with the regulator, but their brand value is strong and it is trusted across much of sub-Saharan Africa, if not other low and middle income countries or even much of the world. And so that breeds trust, that breeds familiarity, and these are really key ingredients to try and get people to sign up to insurance. But beyond that, as I mentioned, you're seeing the likes of MTN who are taking it extremely seriously, starting out with a joint venture, now in a position where they have a majority stake in the actual venture itself. So that's obviously a good sign. You've got Orange, who similarly have such aims as well, and are looking to try and move in that direction. And then, of course, it's very pleasing to see, the head of M-Pesa in Kenya looking at providing that. Of course, Safaricom have tried to offer insurance before. They still do have an insurance service that's provided through their DigiFarm platform to smallholder farmers. So you are seeing a bit of a renaissance, if I could say, that where it's taken a bit more seriously and seen as an additional element of financial inclusion that can be captured once you see that mobile money providers are seeing progress in terms of trying to bank the unbanked.
Right. Thanks so much, Rishi. I think that's really interesting to hear how there's been a bit of evolution in this space. I do see in the chat that Israel, who I know is based in Mozambique, noted that mobile network operators in Mozambique charge rates as much as $100,000 per month to set up, and then the transactional costs for the payments are very high and claims are really high. So that probably coupled with the issues on lack of interoperability is probably a very large challenge for underwriters or technical service providers to work with these channels, and something to maybe discuss offline, because I imagine the setup costs aren't always so high. I have a next question is actually for Salomano. So that you are able to speak to the perspective of the communications regulator in Mozambique. It would be really good to hear how much collaboration you've undertaken with other regulators within Mozambique. And if so, which regulators, and what are some of the issues that you guys are jointly addressing and think are important to collaborate on? Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you for the question, Kate. Sorry to be on mute. That was an interesting question. You see, if you want to go digital, you want to have an impact in a market where within the scope of what you're trying to implement, there are other players, other regulators. You need to start talking and then move the talking to something that will really have impact in the market and the daily life of people. So what we did first is have a memorandum of understanding with the financial sector, with the central bank. That was point number one, to start to shape and organize how the regulation will go from now on. And second, starting with other regulators like INTIC, like the regulator from the insurance. We had a brief discussion with them during the last year about what we can do together. We start talking with other regulators like the audiovisual sector and start to draft regulation together that will somehow easy operators and people how to get licenses and services. Should be something really quick and easy. So if there is something that we are both doing together, like HAS and the other regulator from the newspapers or radio communications, we try to tap with to eliminate or remove barriers for people to have access to services and technology. That was point number one in our discussions. And point number two is sitting down and writing, make sure that what we are writing, all operators and MNOs which are actually in the market, they fully agree with what is in, which we call like a public consultations. We do several to make sure that whatever we are drafting as a regulation is something that operators are willing to adopt. And then we try to remove the existing regulations within both the markets, this regulator and all the other regulators, to make sure that there is some kind of interconnection between what we're doing. And then on a second stage, we try to release more resources to be able to allow companies to provide an adequate quality of service. We try to roll out things like exchange points within the country to make sure that the internet service providers can reach the other parts of the country, the central and north, and try to reduce the cost of the internet. I mean, the gap between the cost in the capital and the other states. That's the point number two that we have been discussing within TIC and other entities. And we try to remove taxes from services. That's a huge challenge. We also discussing with the revenue entity how to lay over or reduce the costs when somebody imports goods. When I am operator imports goods during this COVID season, I mean, we need to find ways to allow people to have access to technology at a lower cost without paying so much expensive duty taxes. Within at the same time, make sure that when people are using services, the taxes that are collected, they can be sent back to cover the gap that they have been created. So if the market grows, there'll be more taxes within something we call EVA, and the revenue authority will be able to recover what they've deducted during the season where everybody's importing. We are trying to create a season of importation within all operators within the sector. Everybody imports on the same time and everybody gets the same duty exemption. It's not an easy task, so we are still discussing and working on that. So trying to reduce the price of all the services is a major challenge, because imagine if you are the regulator and you do lots of tax exemptions, but then your operators, you just keep the same price. That's a big challenge. It's something that I cannot actually put a regulation in place for retail prices, but it's like a gentleman's agreement. I do my share and I expect that you do your share. That's what we are doing presently. It's just trying to trust each other and work together to provide the service to the communities. That's the most important. That's the goal and objective today. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. It seems like you have been keeping very busy with collaboration among many different regulatory bodies, but it's great to hear about what you're doing in that space. I think while we're on the topic of regulation, there's another question for you, Valerie. So I'm going to be quite cheeky, and I hope that we can get in one more question for everyone. So try to keep your response to maybe 1 to 2 minutes max. But a question from the audience for you, Valerie, was around how easy or hard was it for you to convince the regulator to allow premium payment using airtime deductions? I know that was a sticking spot in Ghana several years ago, but one that you were able to work around. So it would be good to hear more about that.
So I wasn't country manager at the time when they went through that, but I think from my understanding and just engagement with the regulator, what has helped was around just them also having a specific understanding of what is it that we were trying to do, what is the segment of the market that them having that regulation to enable us to leverage airtime would open up, and if there were other industry partners how could we make it an industry discussion rather than a specific individual business with a business need. We were actually also having this discussion around data deduction now, because as people are using more data, there's less available airtime to actually deduct insurance premiums from. And what we found is just making it an industry discussion has given us the access to the right people within the regulatory space to actually develop a white paper, understand what are the pros and cons of opening different payment segments up. I think it's very much, it's been very important for us as we've taken things to the regulator to spend the time for them to look at what is it opening, who is it allowing us to reach. And I think particularly for airtime, it was an opportunity to reach people who were just not in the insurance space at all. And that was the point of leverage that was really used.
Yeah, thanks so much, Valerie. Just out of coincidence, several years ago, I worked on a insurance for growth diagnostic in Ghana that looked specifically at the case of airtime being used for deductions with MNOs. And it's actually often used as a very promising case of how the different regulators can work together to achieve something for the benefit of people. So it required quite a lot of close coordination with the Bank of Ghana, the communications regulator, as well as the National Insurance Commission. And the National Insurance Commission did a really great job of driving this agenda. But it was obviously the private sector entities that brought the issue to the National Insurance Commission, and then they actually took it forward with the regulated entities. So I think it's a great example of where collaboration can really pay off. And you heard in Valerie's numbers that now they serve over 2.5 million people. Probably a big majority of that wouldn't be possible without this kind of exemption something that started as an exemption and then actually went into regulation. So I think a great demonstration case for this. I think I'm going to move on now quickly to Rishi. So Rishi, GSMA has the advantage of a more global perspective, working with many MNOs across the world. Are there specific things that you think that Mozambique can learn from other countries that have developed digital solutions so far? And are there specific mistakes which they can avoid that others have made?
Ooh, that's quite putting me on the spot, I guess. I think in terms of countries where we've seen how insurance has worked successfully, you know, the old adage with anything to do with digital financial services in sub-Saharan Africa ends up pointing at Kenya, and I'm afraid I have to do the same in this case, where if you look at the regulator in Kenya, the approach that they've adopted has enabled a lot of innovation, you know, a lot of trial, and then the regulation sort of catches up and comes into the fore once services have developed themselves. And I, you know, looking at what's going on on the back of the pandemic, there's been a lot of investment or at least setup that's gone into creating tech hubs that are focused on trying to foster, engender and foster insurance services. So I think that looks like an approach that is allowing a lot more innovation to come out and scale as well. You look at some of the major services that offer insurance, and of course the Kenya link, of course, is there. So I would say the way that the regulator set up there looks like it's allowed innovation to happen. I think, you know, and I mean that's not really the only country that has shown success, as Valerie's mentioned, that there's been a lot of good discussions in Ghana. With the regulator and encouraging partnerships with mobile money providers. That sort of approach where you have a focus on partnerships available, that's obviously helped. It does obviously help that when you're working with mobile operators, mobile money providers, they understand the value proposition that's in front of them. And having spoken to MTN in the past in Ghana, there is that sort of awareness about offering savings, which they already do, and then going beyond that to offer insurance as well. So I think those are some of the key things that we've seen tend to work. In terms of things to avoid. Now that's a slightly tricky one because I think each country context is quite specific, and what we found is that what works in one country often may not work in another because of differences in the way they have insurance being regulated. So I remember a while ago talking to Oko Insurance and their desire to set up insurance, either in Mozambique or Madagascar, and the fact was that there were no provisions in the law, and probably was Madagascar actually. There were no provisions in the law at the time for an inclusive insurance service. So I think that kind of regulatory challenge is one that you'll encounter in some markets, but not so much in others. So I think it's not something that you can avoid, but of course, at least having heard what Salomao was saying, there's a greater awareness and there's a greater desire to work with the industry, and that's always going to be encouraging.
Right, thanks so much, Rishi. And what is a webinar without being put on the spot? But Unda, we're running short on time, so I'm going to ask you and Salomao one more question, but if you can keep answers to like 1 minute, that'd be fantastic. You spoke about working with a wide range of stakeholders to deliver insurance. What characteristics make for a good partnership?
Okay, a partner, it depends where you're coming, as a distributor, as an affiliate, or actually as an underwriter. So if you're an underwriter, you're willing to work with us for HCD design, willing to go to the clients and we design with the client. If you're a distributor, you're willing to take the commission based on what we're offering, and you're also close to the target market that we have, or you also have that target market and the distribution channels that are also linked to the technology that we have. If you're going to be an affiliate, you're willing to provide the services at the right time and at the opportune time and at the amount that the client is putting out for you, because affiliate are mostly our service providers. So you're linking you to the service that you're providing. So that's what will make you the best partner with us.
Great, thanks so much. And my last question is for you, Salomao. We spoke about a range of innovations that digital insurance unlocks. What do you believe is key to ensuring that as many Mozambicans are included in the digital economy?
Thank you, Kate. First, we need to go digital. Second, we need to make sure that companies have access to data about mostly where they can start creating their business, or they can relocate or locate or be there at least present. I think that will be second. And third, we need to organize back this access to information, this access to mobile wallets, this access to devices, and above all, we need to have a very reliable communication infrastructure, which is getting better, but we need to increase when it comes to reliability and secondary links of access to telecommunications. That I think would be the key. The moment where the downtime or the quality of service reaches to a level where people don't have to say my phone is not working because I don't have network in a specific region in Mozambique or the deep rural of Mozambique, I think that's the point where we'll be all the required infrastructure to provide, to allow other operators in different sectors to provide service to Mozambicans. That's what we are working on. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. So I'm just going to take a minute or two to kind of wrap up on everything and touch on the 3 questions that this session aimed to answer. But before I do that, I just want to give a big thank you to all of the panelists for your time and your effort in this. Also to the conference organizers. I know that organizing a digital conference is not easy. So thank you so much to FSD Mozambique, the Munich Re Foundation, and of course, Limi from Probability Solutions. Really appreciate all your efforts into making sure this ran smoothly, and also very happy that we didn't have any gigantic tech problems. South Africa has been doing load shedding a lot, which means power cuts. So I'm very happy that it withheld for me. But yeah, so thank you to everyone. And then just to wrap up very quickly, in terms of what are some of the most viable and working digital insurance models within the region and within Mozambique, I think the panelists touched on kind of 3 different ones. The first is the better known MNO-led ones, which we've seen some really promising developments where they've moved from more freemium and loyalty type models to more paid for products. And Valerie did a great job of touching on how FEMA has been successful in this, and Rishi on the different distribution models in this regard. Rishi also touched on the fact that digital marketplaces and international remittance service providers can serve as digital distribution channels. And I think this really goes down to several different elements. The fact that all of these distribution partners do have an established customer base. On top of that, they have an established communications channel and payments channel, which makes providing insurance much easier. And another element that's really promising about these different distribution channels is that they're trusted by consumers. It's something that consumers often come in contact with on a daily basis, which is something that is often lacking from an underwriter. You don't really wake up in the morning and think that you want to purchase insurance or that you necessarily trust your insurance partner, but with these distribution channels, it's a service that you get often on a daily basis. In terms of the next question that we touched on, which is really around what are the challenges experienced in managing digital inclusive insurance? I think this was touched on very well by Taunda and Valerie in this instance. Obviously, you need to deal with different regulators, so the telecommunications insurance regulator, sometimes even the payments regulator. There are sometimes issues with partnership complexity and integration, and also with usability and scalability. Those are some things that providers in this need to consider. And then the last question around how regulators can support the development of digital insurance solutions on infrastructure pricing models and collaboration between regulators. I think Salome touched on this as well as did Taunda and the rest. Is just the fact that regulators can help to remove a digital divide. Salome touched on the fact that at the communications regulator in Mozambique, actually right now they're trying to work to ensure that infrastructure is shared and that all operators can access it, which can help bring down the cost to the end consumer and ensure that more people are digitally included. Also working with kind of smaller providers and enabling innovation and having a clear focus on innovation is something that's key. And then I think one of the last points, which was highlighted by all the participants, was just the need for the different regulators to collaborate with one another, because digital insurance is something that doesn't just touch on insurance regulation, but rather many different aspects of regulation. So ongoing and coordinated communication is key to ensuring that regulators do support inclusive insurance. So with that, let me sign off. We only went 3 minutes over, which I am very happy about. And thank you to everyone who stayed on for an extra 3 minutes. We really appreciate you joining. And thanks again to the panelists and the organizers. Hope you have a lovely day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Kate.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody, for your participation. This will be all for today's session. I invite you to join us tomorrow at 9. So thank you very much and see you tomorrow.